Yes, you guys, and how are all of you doing today? I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV, and welcome to another 4 talking points video after that 1-1 draw against Leicester City. Now, in today's video, I am going to talk about Azpi. I'm going to talk about why Reece James is going to be important for this team. I'm going to talk about the defensive balance issues in the midfield, and to end things, I'm going to be talking about Kepa and the one vital thing we're missing from him. But before I get into anything, today's video is brought to you by the OneFootball app. If you guys want to help me out and support the channel, download the OneFootball app in the link in the description below. And if you like today's video, smash that like button. Help me get more than 1,500 likes for today's video. Now, getting straight into the first talking point, and we need to discuss Azpi and his recent struggles. And it's looking quite evident now that Azpi is on the decline. He's struggling in the current tactical setup. And I'm going to explain why he's struggling and what we need to do to help him out. Now, before we can discuss Azpi, we need to understand the framework for what Lampard is trying to do with this team from a tactical point of view. Now, with this team, it's all about creating those fast attacking transitions, and we do that with the use of the movement in behind from the attacking three. Now, a lot of times, Pedro is going to make a diagonal run. The same thing as Pulisic. And Mason Mount then decides what areas to attack depending on where the space is. And due to the movement of the attacking three, it means that we constantly have at least 3 to 4 players between the lines at all times. And as we can see, this frees up the spaces out wide. And this is where the fullbacks play a very important part. Because with the fullbacks, they're tasked with obviously creating those overloads down the flanks. And because they need to be left isolated in that point of view, it means that they need to be very technically accomplished. They need to have a lot of great attacking instincts. They have to feel comfortable and be good playing in the final third. And this is why in particular, Emerson is looking so promising this season. But on the other hand, this is why Azpi is currently struggling. The fullbacks do have a secondary role to play, and due to the high positioning that Lampard expects from both of them, they are required to help keep the team shape in the final third, and they do this by pinning back the opposition fullback. Now yeah, this is an aggressive style of football to play, but with the right players and the right technicians, it can pay off and it can definitely work. Lastly, when it comes to the fullbacks as well, they need to become the outlet for the switch ball. Let's say for example, the play is congested down the right hand sides. Let's move Pedro here. Let's move Mason there as well. We'll move Giroud in a bit more as well. And the whole team shape then drifts to the right hand sides. With the play being down the right hand side, it means that we have our opponents where we want them. So it becomes essential that the fullback is comfortable playing in the final third, is press resistant, and has quality with how they use the board as well. Because as I said, they're the outlet for the switch ball, and they help start the second phase of the attack. Now, as I've explained, I've told you what Azpi needs to have from an offensive point of view, and as we're seeing, he can't do it. It's not his natural game. Azpi plays best when he has someone hugging the touchline in front of him. Azpi has always performed well and excelled when he plays in teams where he has defensive support, because that way he is able to use his one-on-one defensive ability to amazing effects. But in this system where the fullbacks both need to advance and hold their positions in the final thirds, Azpi isn't comfortable. Azpi's never been comfortable leaving the halfway line to close down anyone, and as we're seeing and as we saw against Leicester, they constantly kept attacking down that left hand side time and time again. And in that game, Azpi recorded not a single tackle or interception made, and that's crazy. That's not good enough, and that's not typical Azpi. And as I've explained, the fullbacks are key. We can't afford to have the fullbacks constantly losing easy possession of the ball. It's not going to help us out. As you guys can see here, in a way, with how the fullbacks behave, they basically do act as wide midfield players, and they're really important in helping us play out from the back and beat the opposition press. There's times where Azpi needs to drop back a bit deeper to help form a makeshift back three to become that passing outlet. But when he gets closed down, and it's very easy to close down Azpi, get the ball on his left foot and he can't do anything. He's not press resistant, he doesn't have the technique to play through that, and he can't find the right passing options. And when you consider all these reasons adding up, this is why Azpi is currently struggling. Now, this moves us on very nicely to the second talking point, and that's what Reece James's return is going to mean for the team. Now, with Reece, not only is the guy built like a tank, he's also a great footballer. And as I've been stressing in the first point, we really need our fullbacks to be footballers in particular for this season. And with Emerson and Reece, the big bonus they are going to provide is a better team shape. And that's because Reece is much more comfortable and suited playing this style of football. Now, Reece is a player that's very good offensively, and he really loves his attacking responsibilities. Now, one great aspect about Reece and how he likes to play is his amazing, top quality crossing ability. Now, this guy's crossing is so good that he can be in any area in the final thirds, and he can still find his man in the box. And that's one of the most key, important things to have, because as I've been saying for a long time now, we really struggle to create varied opportunities for our strikers up front. Too often they get predictable service, and when we have that combination of Emerson and Reece providing a steady supply of low-driven crosses, high crosses, and neat and tidy play in the final third, that's going to improve how we overload the flanks. And overloading the flanks is one thing that Frank Lampard is all about. But I think one area in which Reece is going to be a massive help to the team is that there are going to be times where Lampard will tell him to cut inside a bit more. Now, I'm sure that when this happens, we'll most likely be seeing Pulisic down the right hand side and Hudson-Odoi back in the team. Now, this could be pivotal when it comes to helping us defend better in the transition. Now, as I said, Pulisic is hugging the right hand side, keeping the position, keeping that width. You'll see Mason finding advantageous positions in the final third to attack. Hudson-Odoi moving infield as well, creating that three which I was talking about in the first point. The three guys between the lines at all times. And then we'll see Emerson making his customary galloping forward runs down the final third. As you guys can see, that effectively gives us 5 up front. And this is the important thing. It's the stability we now have in midfield. This is the most important thing. We now have 3 guys in the central areas helping us defend against counter-attacks a lot better. This, you guys, is the key tactical aspect that we are going to get from Reece James. The guy really can do everything on the field. There's going to be times where he'll drop a bit deeper to make a back 3. But I think that his ability to play in midfield as well is definitely going to be a tactic when it comes to playing against the bigger teams in the league. Now, just a quick recap. As I'm saying, Reece not only improves the team from an offensive point of view, but most importantly, he improves the team from a tactical point of view, because as we've seen recently, we're really struggling when it comes to defensive transitions. Too often the gaps between our midfield and our defense are too big, and I just think that, having 2 guys in midfield means that they can become susceptible to being overrun. We've seen Guardiola use inverted fullbacks, but to be able to do that, you need to have the right players with the right ability, and thank God we have that in Reece James. Now, moving on into the third talking point, and I spoke about Azpi earlier on. I'm going to need to use him as another example for the next point. Yeah, I know I'm speaking a lot about Azpi today, but the immediate point is, until Reece returns, we're going to have to rely upon Azpi. And I think Frank needs to realise, listen, if we don't have the key technicians playing right now, we need to focus more on defensive balance to get the best out of the current players we're currently using. And right now, guys like Azpi can't play in this system, and it's making us much weaker when it comes to breaking down teams, and it's making us weaker on the counter-attack. Now, what I personally think Frank needs to do to get the very best out of the team until the key technicians do return back is to get back to using a midfield 3. I say this because against Liverpool, we saw this. Against Liverpool, we saw the 4-3-3, and we also saw the return of the mid-block. And the mid-block is key because I think some players are clearly more suited towards this style of tactic compared to using a higher defensive line for an aggressive press. With the use of the mid-block, it means that Azpi has protection from the wide centre-back to help defend in the half spaces, and he has the protection of the winger coming back to make a midfield 5. And I think the midfield 5 is the best way that we can defend off the ball. And at times maybe our pressing is a bit too aggressive. And I think that the best approach right now is to have a balanced one. And I think the best approach the team needs right now is to have a balanced one. A balanced one where we're not constantly exposed all the time, because Azpi now is a player that really can't play in a right back with the system. What we're seeing from opposition teams time and time again is that whenever someone plays in the half space, Azpi doesn't know whether to commit to him and close him down, or whether he needs to follow the opposition winger. Now against Leicester, you know what, I'm not going to be too critical of the midfield, because I definitely think fatigue had a big part to play, as you'd expect the wide midfield players to help track the guys in the half spaces even more. And then I think we wouldn't have seen an exposed Azpi better against Leicester, with Giroud being up front, moving a bit deeper, holding possession of the ball to play balls into the midfield players making runs. This is going to be how we create attacks, but the most important thing is we're keeping that strict defensive shape. The most important thing of using a midfield 3 is the passing options that we have in the middle. Now, as I'm saying, with Pedro and Pulisic, they're inside forwards, and Lampard wants both of them to make diagonal runs closer to Giroud. And of course, when you want guys to make runs in behind, leaving their positions, it means that the fullbacks become isolated. Now, when we did use the midfield 3, Azpi was fine because he had a passing option in Kante on the right hand side. And the reason why Azpi looked a lot more solid against Liverpool was that when it came to creating those overloads out wide, Azpi was mainly used as that decoy runner. So for example, you'd see Pedro moving in the half space, you'd then see Azpi making a run forward, and then you'd see Kante taking up a wide position to call the ball, and that's how we were constantly able to get in behind Liverpool's defensive line. But as you guys can see, playing like this gives us that balance, that defensive balance, because if we lose the ball, you have Kante winning that 50-50 and then restarting that turnover. And to end things with the final talking point, I want to talk about Kepa. And there's one thing that I am noticing, and it has been a major issue that I'm seeing in the team, and that's the fact that we're struggling to play out from the back. Now, yeah, I know that under Sarri last season, the guy is famous for how he wants his teams to play out from the back, so you can expect his team to be heavily focused in that style of play. But we need to consider why we signed Kepa. We signed Kepa for his great passing distribution, and right now, we're not able to see Kepa utilise any of his great passing at all, and that's because there aren't any good options. Now with Kepa, you want this guy in the team because of how he plays the ball on the ground, and as we've heard from tons of players in training, Kepa is rated very highly, and Kepa's been praised so much that players even consider that if he wanted to, he could have become a midfield player. And it falls in nicely with the point I'm constantly talking about in modern day football. When it comes to starting attacks, it starts from deep. And the best teams, the very best teams, have technicians in all areas of the field, even going back to their goalkeepers. For example, look at Edison, look at how Man City utilises fantastic distribution. It's the same thing with Alisson as well. And then think about teams like Barcelona with Ter Stegen and Bayern Munich with Neuer. It seems that when we can't build up down the flanks, the only option is to hit long balls to Giroud. And even though Giroud is doing decent, he isn't the same force he used to be. He's struggling to win all the balls in the final thirds. And obviously playing like this means that we do lose moments of control in the game, and losing unnecessary possession of the ball is the last thing that big teams want to do. Now, this is where I'm going to go back to me talking about using a flat midfield 3, because the importance of using that midfield 3 was the passing options it created. And how does it work? Well, that's because Kepa has another man to play to, and that's going to be Jorginho, that likes to move within the defensive line. And by doing this, it means that the fullbacks can then push further forwards, and we then become a temporary back 3. And these are the type of rotations that we want to do, because this is how you're able to beat the opposition press. And this is important because these rotations are what help us play out from the back and beat the opposition press. I'm sure that Lampard is learning a lot more about the team. Even though you work with these guys week in, week out, you still need that experience of time to fully understand who gets the best out of the system and who doesn't. And when it comes to fine-tuning the team like this, to find that right balance at all times, that also takes time and experience. But for me personally, until the key technicians return, until Reece, Hudson-Odoi and Ruben return back to the team, I think that we need to have a more measured and balanced approach to how we play, and that's because it's the best way to stay competitive. And on that note, you guys, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. Thank you for watching. I'm NiniFC, this is Blue Line CV. See you guys later.